Life is change, and you can be prepared. This is Sudden Money Insights, hosted by Susan K. Bradley. Financial advisors work with clients in transition every day. But what can you offer that other advisors can't? Become a certified financial transitionist through the Financial Transitionist Institute. We go beyond traditional CFP training to provide you with the tools you need to support your clients on the human side of life's big transitions. Learn more by visiting financialtransitionist.com.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Sudden Money Insights. Today, I have the joy and the honor of spending some time with Esther Szabo from Gates Pass Advisors, and that's outside the San Francisco area, Northern California. And you have a background that goes back a long way. You didn't just get into this profession. Tell me about how you started.
Oh, goodness. I'll try not to take up the whole conversation with this. And Susan, thank you so much for inviting me. It's actually my honor to spend this time with you. So thank you. I grew up in actually a financially tumultuous home. And even though my parents, I'm first generation American, my dad was born and raised in Eastern Europe during World War II and the Depression. And he came out of that country, was educated all the way to a doctorate and master's degrees. My mom was born and raised in British Columbia, Canada, on a dairy farm, and her local schooling only went to the 8th grade. She completed high school by correspondence and put herself through college at the University of British Columbia in the 40s with a science degree. So my parents were very well educated, but financial was always a trouble. And to the point where I actually went when I was about 7 or 8 years old to the neighbors to ask if there was some work I could do, because my mom kept worrying to me about this thing called a mortgage, and she was worried about making the payments on it. And I thought, well, I'll help. And it did not go over well when I came home and said, I got a job, because I didn't realize it, because that's not the thing you did in our community. But I kept working all through school until my parents did declare bankruptcy. And in their about the age I am now, I'm in my late 50s. They lost the home, they lost everything, and actually ultimately really became homeless, not pushing carts, but really were taken in. And when I eventually started college, because when I graduated high school, that just wasn't an option. I was actually very angry with education and I was like, all I wanted to do was work. All I wanted was my financial security. And when I did get through college, I took towards the end of it, I know you have to take electives. I took personal finance. Like, what the heck? Fine, check the box. And then I'm going to this class and it was like, oh my goodness, you mean there's actual ways to do this? The man doesn't just come and take your house out from under you, which is what it felt like. And so that started my journey of professionally becoming a financial planner and working in this industry. Before that, all my college work was around becoming a social worker counselor. And so working in the field of financial planning fits me so well, because I love the practical answers part and I love the listening part with my clients.
That's some story. We all come from somewhere. We all have a money story. And they say that our money story is kind of set in place when we're young, like you at 7.
Mm-hmm.
And that we respond to that story until we decide we'd like to change it.
Right.
And we can change it.
Mm-hmm.
And you have changed that story, not just for yourself, but for your clients.
Yes.
So tell me about the kind of clients that you love working with these days.
Well, it's interesting because I've always had a client base that is majority women. And that wasn't necessarily by design, but so many women like working with another woman. And then, so I would focus on women in transition even before I became a certified financial transitionist with the Financial Transitionist Institute. And what changed for me is I lost my own first husband about 7.5 years ago. I was widowed, and going through the experience myself. And we were talking before we were recording today about we are not exempt from going through transitions ourselves, and the things that come up are, I am not different than the clients I work with. Often well-educated professional women who either are single or it's in the couple, they were and maybe were or are the higher earner. And they are going through some kind of critical change in their life. It can be loss of a spouse or through death or divorce. It can also be, I work in the Silicon Valley Bay Area. It can be my company was purchased, or I just got a lot of stock options, or my stock options are now vested and there's some really serious money here. And they want to be good stewards of these funds, and they want to use them to set off the next level of their life experience. So the ones I love to work with are ones who just are wanting to engage with a collaborative partner, and who are really interested often they love in some way or another, they want to be making a difference. It's often in their families' lives, their children, or even their parents. And it can also be, if they don't have children, in their communities. It's really important for them to make that impact in the world.
And that impact is probably not always made with money, or with having so much money that you have to figure out how to give it away. That's not what you're talking about.
No. These are people net worths, let's say in 2 to 20 million, in there, somewhere around there, depending on their situation. But it's more what people want is, it's so important to look at the resource of time as well, and skills and life experience. And what can I do? I just love this phrase that a client taught me. She said, I just want to get off this Silicon Valley wheel, like the squirrel wheel. I want to get off of that, to always like, there's got to be more and more and more, and just take a step back and go, I want to experience being able to provide into my community, which doesn't take money. It just takes the ability, like, can I pay my bills? Can I pay my bills for a long time? And my bills don't necessarily have to be super high, but can I live for a long time based on what I've accumulated so far?
Yeah. So how do you help people prioritize and discover what's really important? Because even using the resource of time, there's probably more opportunities than there's time. So how do you help people sort through that and work towards something that's really meaningful for them?
Yeah, I love our tools with the Financial Transitionist Institute that we have. We have two that I use a lot in this area, which one is our money story tool, which is about what is our money story? What is our history around money? What did we hear? And I love the framing, because it is looking back and saying, what did I learn? And am I still looking at the world through that lens? And can I expand that lens? So when you said a moment ago, you've gone beyond that money story, I will say most of the time. But when life changes and something is up leveled in my life, that money story is like, boom, it's right back. It's saying, oh no, you can't go this, that life can't be this good. We're reading that book, The Big Leap, that we're reading in our training. And I love The Big Leap because it talks about how we have an upper level of comfort in our lives where things may be great and then they get better. And we're like, oh no, things can't be this good. I got to keep it small. And I have to really navigate that in my own life because things are really good. And I have this fear because of that experience of gradually watching my parents' financial life fall apart in front of me that, oh, this is just a matter of time before it happens to me. and I have to engage with other people. I have to eat my own cooking like I do with my clients and say, oh, this is my history. Let's look at my history and say, history, this is not 1977. This is 2022. And look at all the people in my life now. Look at the engagements I have and all of the things that are there as buffers long before I might fall off a cliff. So that old story will tell me, oh, you're right on the edge of a cliff. And that's what happens with my clients too. They'll be like, especially right now, oh my God, inflation. Oh my God, wars. Oh my God, the market's down. And so we use things like the money story to first learn what is the wiring around money that one has. And the way that I do it, we have it that people can fill it out like a workbook. I like to do it like a conversation like this. And I find that clients like that too. Let's just talk about this. Let's just have this be a safe place to talk about this and let me hear you. And one of the things that comes up a lot thematically is that my clients have parents who were very salt of the earth, and they were able to. There are a couple themes. I don't know. I don't want to, but there are a couple things that I'm thinking of recent clients where my parents were salt of the earth. They didn't go too far out of the boundary because they were just glad that they could pay the bills and take a vacation. So when a client presses out of that boundary to go, I want a bit more, it can feel like breaking the family rules. Like, aren't you happy with what you have? What makes, I would hear this from my mom. What makes you think you can do that? And so it's encouraging that conversation to say, okay, if we press a little bit outside of this, what might happen? And then the other, and what money story do you want to write for yourself? And often we talk about, and what are your kids learning from you that might inform your money story? Recently, I was having a conversation. A client reached out and I was so happy she did. I encourage my clients, please reach out if you're anxious or worried. Please don't worry about, oh, do I have time? Just reach out and we'll get you on the calendar. And I'm so glad she did. And she just was having financial anxiety. She did not grow up in the United States. Her family also went through a lot of financial ruin generation after generation because of wars, political issues in the country that she was in and that they were from. And she said, she's like white knuckling. And so we talked about it. Like, what do you want to experience? What do you want to model for them in terms of finances and money and all of that? So that's one of the ways, is going historically. And then the other is our bliss list, which is multiple pages. And again, we don't necessarily say, okay, here, fill this out and I'll talk to you in a few weeks at all. I go through and we have a conversation about what would you like to see? And recently, one of the questions that it asks is, one of the things I'd really like to learn is, and the client kind of went, well, I don't know. I've thought about this, and I relate to this too. She's like, I don't really want to take lessons. I don't have time for lessons. I mean, I think about guitar, think about Spanish, but I don't know. And then she said, oh, light went on. She goes, you know what I need to know? I need to really know how not to drink. I am drinking too much, and it's really bad for me. And I need to know how not to do this.
Wow. There's an insight for you. That's a life changer.
And that's a life changer. That doesn't mean you need millions of dollars to do that at all. She also knows that I'm a sober woman in recovery. I've been sober for over 35 years now. So I'm a safe place to talk about this stuff with. I get it. I understand. She, people look at me and I hear that, really? You're not, I would have thought that was you. And she was having the experience now as a professional woman, going to her doctor, going to her friends and saying, I have a problem with this, and getting the feedback, oh, no, you don't. You're not one of those people. And it's like these tools give us an opportunity to say, yeah, what is available to support you in that? Because you can have all the money and the wonderful things in the world, but if your health is being jeopardized and in question, it won't matter.
Absolutely.
So let's get that fixed.
So what you're you're talking about here was my curiosity a few minutes ago. As you were talking about the money story, what happens next? I think it's very valuable that you see how the money story can get very, very quiet and kind of moved way to the periphery, and then you get triggered and it's back. So yes, it's important to get the past. And you have that. And what also is interesting with that is that you and your client have a mutual understanding of that. It's not their secret or your observation that something's kind of wonky and a little off and you better be careful. You've named it, you've talked about it. It doesn't have that kind of shame or unfortunate energy.
Yeah.
You can see it get triggered. So one side of it is that. The other side is what you're saying, when you're free to reimagine, to rethink, and to create. And for the client who said what she needed to learn was how not to drink, that's not something that's on a list of things that people her age in her community would choose to do. These are all your community education programs or networking abilities. And this is real, true, honest from the deep inside. So it's one thing for someone to buy a bliss list and go do it themselves. And I guess we could have published that. Maybe we will someday, whatever. It's the processing.
Right.
Of it. And it's that shared experience with someone who can integrate that. And that knowing that she has informs you about her, and probably informs you, or let me ask you this, how does that, or does it inform you in the financial planning that you would do for this woman?
Yeah, it's basically going, what are there's so many things that are around what supports you in a life where, and in her case, she was drinking to deal with stress and anxiety and unknown and all of those, those spooks that come up. And so what supports a life that is able to, because they will come up, that enables one to have them come up, look at them and say, you're not real. And for her, that included, I need to work less. I'm working too much. I need more time to myself. So that ultimately goes into that technical, practical part of, okay, what are you spending? How much money do you need do you want to keep spending at that level? And if it is, how much money do you need? Or if you're willing to work less, earn less, and spend less, how do we structure that? I mean, that's a very basic response, but what do we need to support a life where you feel relieved of anxiety and tension without using a substance?
Now, I would not put that down as a definition of a financial planner.
I know, because it's always about retirement, college.
Yeah.
Perhaps getting out of debt.
But I mean, this is big in the well-being area.
Yes.
Money is part of well-being, but so is health.
Absolutely.
And learning how to manage both health and money for an outcome. And who knows how creative or happy or expansive she could be. Yeah. When this is gone. That's really a beautiful thing. So you also talked about you yourself being a widow. Yeah. And working with widows. I guess every financial planner works with widows to some degree. It's part of the landscape that we're in and facts of life. How do you work with widows differently now with your financial transitionist work? Is there anything that's changed?
Well, so much has changed with the financial transitionist work. And some things are not, just because it's still me. But I would say between the financial transitionist work and my own experience, it is the comfort with going more slowly.
Mm.
We talk a lot in the community, the financial transitionist community, about how we so much want to solve the problem. And we can bring out tools and jargon and this and that. I would say there's a lot more comfort with me just holding the space with someone. Whether it's, I'm thinking of actually a woman who's not a widow, but her husband is going through, he's been diagnosed early stage Alzheimer's. So there's a different loss there.
Ambiguous loss.
Yes, that's the word. And so it's so sad because they're right there. And just being able to stop a meeting when she bursts into tears and just holding that space. And she may be embarrassed because, we're supposed to hold it together. I was on another call yesterday with a woman and her husband, and she said, "Oh, I may not be able to make that particular time frame because I just found out something about my son." And she started to cry and she goes, "I'm so sorry." And it's like, no, I'm so sorry for what you're dealing with. Probably someone who's, of course, it's someone who's one of the most incredibly important people in her life. So just being able to hold that space and honor it, rather, gosh, I hate in our society, there's embarrassment about looking like we don't have it all together.
Yeah. There's a lot of shame that can come with these life events and transition. And in the profession of financial planning, as in the legal and tax that widows have to navigate through, there's a tendency to want to focus on practice management, be super efficient.
Yeah.
And schedule this and then schedule this and schedule that. And it's kind of dehumanizing, treating people as algorithms as opposed to humans. But then you can say, okay, I don't want to do the algorithm thing. I want to be human. I want to be practical. I want to run a business and make a profit for myself and family. But I need to treat people in a way that they're safe and they know that I understand them, and all the things that you say so beautifully. So how do you do that? How do you not worry about the practice? I know you do practice management. I know you're very thorough as a business owner, but people would say that widows and other people going through transition, divorce, take more time. And they're not very, somebody said, "Oh, those high overhead people."
Oh dear.
It just broke my heart. I would never refer someone, "Here, I have a high overhead person. It happens to be my best friend, but do the best you can." Terrible.
It is terrible. Susan, that's a question there's no perfect answer for. Because the only perfect answer that I think that the brain wants is, "Oh, we've caught the formula. It's this many meetings with this many time, and we charge this much money, and blah, 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 blah." I don't have the perfect formula for it. What I do, and then when I hear that, what I hear in that is the desire for a cookie cutter practice. Let's have a conversation. Yes, I'm an empathetic person. Yes, I'm trustworthy. Let's put your assets in this pie of, stocks, bonds, and cash, and I'll see you again in 3 months. And that just doesn't fit for me at all. And so it's more like, this is the way that we do it in our practice is we have 2 phases of engagement. The first is we always do a financial planning engagement to say, okay, based on, this is a conversation, it's a recent, it's again, I'm sorry, it's not a widow conversation, but it's a couple who are in their late 60s, early 70s, contemplating a move out of state. The husband is ready to go, gone. I'm out. I'm ready to leave this state. The wife is, I'm going to be leaving community. I'm not sure if I'm ready to move from California to the Northeast. It's cold there. I've got family there. That's great. But so we find out all of this before, and we structure the engagement to say, what conversations do we need? Because she has a need for safety and community and financial. He has a desire I want land and I want to build and create. and he's impatient. So how do we count both people? So we structure in the number of meetings that it will take to provide the answers that both need. And we charge for that engagement. And then we have a phase 2 that says, okay, if we would like to stay on for implementation of this, but we take a pause and say, implementation, we don't know as we're sitting here today exactly how implementation will look. Generally, it looks like this. Planning is one thing, and then life happens. So none of us knew when we were wrapping up our plans in neat little bows in February of 2020 that we were about to be hit with a global pandemic, with a global economic shutdown. So things like that can't predict. So phase 2 is more about now what happens in real life, and let's keep your plan alive and connected so that you know you have that visibility moving forward, and then that your portfolio is allocated to support that. And that's how we do it, is stepping it into 2 rather than trying to figure it all out at once. And the thing, can I say one more thing, or you have a, okay. The thing that I will say about widows that has surprised me so much is that widows are people too. This is happening. We are smart women. Things happen to us, and men and widowers, and the perception out there. And yes, this can be the case. The perception is all widows are like 85 years old and doddering and incapable. Yeah. And that is so not true. The other market I love working with is seniors who are smart people, and our society tends to just kick people to the curb, but they have so much value to offer, so much insight. And so, sure, I will take the time because I enjoy these people. And then we work out, they typically don't need the whole, often people need about this much time on investments and that, well, I'll think it better, this much time on investments and that much time on planning in life. So we structure it so that we can take care of those things.
I want to call out that when you say planning in your step 1, I think traditionally that would mean data gathering, some discovery, putting all of that from a discovery meeting or meetings into a software program, and you would have a plan. You know, this is who you are, this is what you have, and this is what you should do. That's not what you said.
Right.
The experience that you gave us with a couple with maybe similar direction, but very different feelings and possible outcomes and all, there's nothing simple about that. There's trade-offs, there's competing elements that are essential. And traditionally, that would be the client's problem.
Yeah.
You know, you would help people go through this move to be financially strong so they had flexibility and choices. But that conversation about what she needs and what he needs would happen out there. The planner would not know about it, probably until things didn't go well and those clients got divorced and you lost half of it or maybe both of them.
And they weren't happy.
Right.
And they spent all that time.
I did all this great planning. Right. What's up with you? Every time in the first half of my time, my 22 years, I would hear people, advisors, I'd go to a conference, they would tell me stories, and the punchline was always, I gave them such great advice, it's just a shame. It was always the client's fault. And I love the fact that you don't have that in your makeup at all. Even if someone doesn't take your advice and does harm that you've warned them for, you still hold them with compassion.
Absolutely.
People who've been trying to do the best, and it's unfortunate, but they're not the problem. There's a problem other than them that they're having trouble solving, and you're helping them, keeping them as safe as possible. Esther, I love the way you do work. So before I let you go, I want to, I do enjoy this so much. I want to ask you a question. What do your clients say about you to other people? If someone said, why do you work with Esther? What do you like about it? What do you don't like? What do they say?
Well, I know this because we actually engaged someone to find out for us so that we could be sure we were tracking and with what our clients were saying. And some of the things that came back included that this couple came to us, younger couple in their 40s, where one of the parents, both parents had passed away, one about a year before the other, and they had done a trust and they had done all this work, but they had not funded the trust. They had not updated beneficiaries. So it left the beneficiaries in limbo, let alone losing both of your parents within a short time. And what they said is they went to some different investment places and they were told, okay, well, you're this old, you're this is how you should invest. And they were like, that doesn't quite, we felt like a cookie cutter type of thing. And with Gates Pass Advisors and with Esther, we felt like they were listening to us, that she heard where we were and what we needed. And we felt safe and we felt able to have the conversation about what was going on. And between me and I also have an associate, Eric Shea, so it was both of us, we don't feel like we're just cookie cutter cogs in the wheel. And another client has said, I just feel really comforted, like I'm really held like through these changes in my life, as well as just, life is full, life is busy, and it's too bad. And this is me talking. It's too bad there's still so much shame about it can be with mental health and it can be with financial, like somehow we're supposed to know how to do it all ourselves. And if we don't, there's something wrong with us. And I just appreciate that she said, you know what, I can give this and talk about it with Esther, and then I can focus on the other things in my life and know that I'm safe and listened to.
Well, I applaud you. And I say this in all honesty. I think that you and some of your peers, the CEFT community, are really changing the world one client at a time for people to feel safe and be able to navigate big stuff and make decisions for themselves and their family and progress in life. It's absolutely huge. So, and I love the fact that you are thinking of the future and you have Eric with you now, and you're putting Eric through this training and all the rigors, and your clients are going to be well served even beyond you. And you've got another 15 years to go.
Yes, so at least. And that's the goal. That's the goal.
The world is in transition. Your clients are in transition. We're all there. And we need you. We need you doing the work that you're doing. Thank you so much, Esther.
Well, I need you too, Susan, and the Financial Transitionist Institute. And thank you for everything you've done. I know that I used to go to conferences and I never felt like I had my tribe, because you know what these conferences are like. I would go up and you'd meet people and they'd go, well, how many assets do you have under management? And I'd be like, oh God, like who cares? And then when I'm around financial transitioners, we can have these conversations and it's such a breath of fresh air. So thank you for enlivening my professional life.
My great pleasure, Esther. I'll see you at the next FTI gathering.
Sounds good. I'm looking forward to it.
Bye, Esther. Thank you.